The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Finally, there is a resolution to the James Cook situation.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
Well, folks, welcome in. There is a resolution regarding the Bills and James Cook. Things have changed. And the Bills and James Cook reached a 4-year, $48 million contract extension with $30 million guaranteed. It happened, and it's been a journey going back to February when James Cook pinned a comment on his own Instagram Live saying he wanted $15 million a season, sitting out anything that was voluntary, showing up to camp, practicing for the first week and a half, then all of a sudden holding in, warming up against the Giants, and then not playing. And then the hold-in continues, but then it quickly changes, and he practices yesterday, and today we have a contract extension. So I want to tell you how I feel about this thing. We'll break down what we know about the deal and focus on moving forward and putting the saga, the drama, if you will, behind us. So this deal comes in at $12 million per season average annual salary, which is exactly the amount that I found to be reasonable. That was kind of in my head, even going back to February when we were talking about what's the right number, what's a fair number. That's where we landed. And the talking point that I had was $15 million's just not reasonable. That's not a reasonable number. And James did all he could to get 15. He forced the issue as hard as he could. Shot for the moon. But ultimately, reality prevailed here and a deal got done. So in terms of average annual salary, $12 million, like I said, James Cook, seventh highest paid running back in the NFL, or I guess tied for sixth. Number one is Saquon Barkley at 20.6. Christian McCaffrey, number 2 at 19. Derrick Henry, number 3 at 15. Jonathan Taylor, number 4 at 14. Alvin Kamara, number 5 at 12.25. Then you have Josh Jacobs and James Cook at number 6 at $12 million. Now keep in mind, Josh Jacobs' $12 million entering 2024 is not the same as James Cook's $12 million entering 2025 because the cap went up. And then at number 8, you have Aaron Jones and Kyren Williams at $11 million. In terms of APY, it comes in at a reasonable spot. And you know me, I care a lot about percentage of cap at signing. I think that's really important as the cap continues to go up. I mean, it's been over a $50 million increase over the last 2 years. We cannot compare deals that were signed 2 years ago to ones that are signed today when the cap is $50-something million more than it was. So this deal for James Cook comes in at 4.3% of cap at signing, which is also 7th in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, 7.44% of cap at signing, number 1. Saquon Barkley, number 2 at 7.4. Jonathan Taylor, number 3 at 6.23. Derrick Henry, number 4 at 5.37. Alvin Kamara, number 5 at 4.8. Josh Jacobs, number 6 at 4.7. James Cook, number 7 at 4.3. And if you remember all of the analysis that we had about where this deal should land, I drew that line right there under Josh Jacobs and said, it shouldn't be more. It shouldn't be more than Josh Jacobs. It winds up being the same APY, but about 0.5% less percentage of cap at signing. Again, we're talking about a deal under a different cap limit. I think this comes in exactly at a fair and reasonable dollar amount. Not the 15 that James Cook initially was looking for, but that's a negotiation, right? You can only come down. You're not going to go up on your asking price without new information. And so this comes in at a reasonable spot. That's one of the big words that has been on my mind this entire situation. And now that there's a resolution, I land on that word reasonable. And I'm also relieved. I did not enjoy dealing with this for the last several months. It's an unavoidable conversation. There's new information all the time, and you're just got to ride it out. But yeah, it's been annoying. It's been very annoying. So I'm relieved that it's over with, and I'm relieved that it reached a reasonable conclusion. Now, the part of this deal that is on the higher side is the guaranteed money at signing. James Cook gets $30 million guaranteed at signing. That's the third most guaranteed money at signing of any NFL running back contract. Number one, Saquon Barkley at 36. Number two is actually Ashton Genty, who's a rookie, top 10 pick for the Raiders. 35.89 guaranteed at signing. Then you have Cook at 30. Next is Derrick Henry at 24. So this is definitely a deal that maybe it doesn't reach the APY goals that James Cook had. It's certainly, in terms of guaranteed money at signing, puts him in a really good spot. So that's probably the big win for James Cook here. Now, obviously, with any contract, it's all about finding out the details. I always say that. Wait for the details. And you should. But here's the good part about what we know right now. It's not going to be more than $12 million a season, right? Whenever we say wait for the details, it usually is because it tells a story about how the initial announcement was overinflated in terms of what the reality of the deal is. Wait for the details here won't tell us a story that leads it to a higher dollar amount where you start to get upset. I'm really comfortable with where this landed. Really comfortable. James Cook, 4-year, $48 million contract extension to continue as the Buffalo Bills running back. And I am relieved that we have a resolution, and one that I'm satisfied with. The paying running backs conversation is a challenging one. They're not hard to find, and there's been so many cautionary tales of what happens with a running back's second contract. But here's where I have some hope with this deal for the Bills. And it is about maximizing the player. And you can look back at some of the contract extensions that the Bills have given out in recent years, or even contracts, big commitments that haven't paid off, whether that's Trey White or Matt Milano and the injuries, Von Miller, Dawson Knox, some bigger deals that haven't necessarily led to the result that you're looking for. Here's where I have some hope for James Cook as a running back, where, again, there's been plenty of cautionary tales. James Cook turns 26 years old next month in September. Very low mileage running back. In college, 4 college seasons at Georgia, only 297 touches. That's it in 4 years combined. In 3 seasons in the NFL, 630 touches. That's not a lot of mileage on this guy. So young, and that low mileage really makes you feel good about the Bills being able to maximize this contract and get good returns. And you're talking about a guy in James Cook that I think has missed 1 game due to injury so far in the NFL. It's just 1 game, the ankle against the Jets last year. So I feel good about where this can go. I also feel really good about this running back room. James Cook locked in on this 4-year extension. You got 3 more years of Ray Davis. You have 2 more years of Ty Johnson. That is really strong. I loved what this running back room was last year, and to know that it's intact gives me a lot of excitement, because this rushing equation for the Bills has been really good. It's an awesome rushing offense. And James Cook and his skill set is optimized in this offense. Those zone runs, that mid-zone, those cutbacks that he's able to do, the home runs, the receiving ability, it matters a ton for where this Bills offense can go. James Cook is optimized for this offense, and the offense is optimized with James Cook in it. Those explosive runs were huge, especially for a passing game last year in particular that didn't have a lot of explosive elements to it. To be able to get some of that back on the ground game is nice with James Cook. One of my favorite things about James Cook has been his growth. The Bills will tell you, they drafted this guy to come in and be a pass catching back, right? That was the whole conversation with James Cook coming out of Georgia. Maybe even a guy that should switch to receiver. And so he goes from this pass catcher, right, this specialized type player, to his second year, he's the Bills' lead running back and has 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Then the next year, he has 1,300 yards from scrimmage and 18 touchdowns. And if you remember, coming out of 2023, it's like, hey, this production's really good, but fumbles are an issue, drops are an issue. You're not a super physical runner, and you can't really pass block. And you fast forward to 2024, and he corrected almost all of those issues. Fumbling went away. The drops mostly went away. And he was so much more consistent running behind his pads and showing physicality. Remember 2023? It's like James would go in and he'd have twinkle toes, and then Latavius Murray would have to come in for a few snaps. And then all of a sudden, James Cook would get it going. That really went away this past season. He's really grown. The vision has really grown. His ability, his vision in the hole is probably one of my favorite traits about him in terms of how he navigates zone runs. And then it's what he can do with his vision in the hole to set up those next moves that I think really separates him. And then he certainly is very elusive and can make these dynamic cuts where his feet can get well outside of his frame and he can plant and drive and change directions. I mean, there's a lot of dynamic skill there that's been developed that has completely changed the idea of what James Cook is going to be in the NFL. He's went from pass catching specialist to highly productive zone runner that can also catch the football, that hits home runs. So I love the growth. And so you start to think about, like, where does this go? I've seen nothing but growth from James Cook across 3 seasons.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endlessly scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Well, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. The Green Bay Packers are all of a sudden pretty banged up.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
It was a tough day at practice yesterday for the Green Bay Packers as yet more key players exited with injury. Romeo Doubs goes down and stays down, able to walk off under his own power. Lucas Van Ness goes down. He's having a blistering training camp by all accounts. Savion Williams, who was back, is now unback. So the receiver room from last year looks as follows. Christian Watson, physically unable to perform. They have a list for it even. Dontavian Wicks has been hurt now for some time. Jaden Reed, new injury, sprained foot. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know if he's going to play week 1. He's hopeful. Romeo Doubs, now hurt. Savion Williams, in and out of the lineup, also a rookie. So that leaves Matthew Golden, a rookie, a first-round rookie who's been one of the most impressive players in camp, but a rookie. Malik Heath, who I think we saw in Philadelphia, has his limitations as a frontline player for you. Really nice 5th or 6th receiver. Really not so nice second receiver. That's all due respect to him. Carved himself out a wonderful niche in the NFL. I think he's going to have a long career. I think he could do more for other teams if he was a third or a fourth receiver. That, like, Bo Melton might be back playing receiver tomorrow, today. At joint practices, he might be playing receiver. That might be the situation that the Packers find themselves in. Now, we don't know the severity with Romeo Doubs at this point, but here's what I'll say. And this goes for Lucas Van Ness and Xavier McKinney, who's also not practicing. And now, I didn't even mention Jordan Love. We will get to Love in a second. That is seemingly much ado about nothing, but I still think there's some things, interesting things there to talk about. This team is built to deal. They are not a top-heavy roster. If you're, say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you happen to be losing Tristan Wirfs, and then you're already Chris Godwin TBD to start the season. If Mike Evans goes down, your passing offense is Emeka Egbuka and a hope and a prayer. Now the Packers, they've lost 3 receivers, and I look at their offense and I go, they'll be fine. They'll be fine because they have Jordan Love, we think. They'll be fine because they have Matt LaFleur. They'll be fine because they have Josh Jacobs. They'll be fine because they have a good offensive line. They'll be fine because they've done this before. We've seen them adapt and be malleable in these instances without all of those receivers that I just mentioned. Well, it was Wicks, Heath, and Melton in the playoff game against Philly in the second half, and they had that game tight in the second half. They gave that team everything they could handle. So, yes, you want to open with the Lions. You want to be healthy. You want to have Jaden Reed for that game. You want to have Lucas Van Ness for that game. But the Packers didn't get much from Lucas Van Ness last year anyway, and they were a top 10 defense. They didn't have Nate Hobbs last year, and they were a top 10 defense. And if you want to add the Xavier McKinney piece, okay, that's tough. But Evan Williams is a really solid player, and the player who's going to replace Xavier McKinney is the guy who was the day one no doubt starter as a rookie last year before he had to change positions because of the injuries in the cornerback room. They've already weathered this. Now, they haven't weathered losing Xavier McKinney, who, as I've mentioned and written about and given a lot of oxygen to, he was the reason that defense was able to get away with a lot of the corner play that it was getting last year with the sub superstar level players that they have. We've never seen a defense with Javon Bullard and Evan Williams as your two guys, though I think that's a pairing that fits. They have different skill sets. They're both versatile players. I think that could work. Do you want the one game for that where that's the case, like to be the Detroit Lions in week 1 in a game that you really kind of have to win? I don't know about that. But again, this is a team that over the course of the last 2 years, like, let's not forget in 2023, Christian Watson dealt with injury. Dontavian Wicks dealt with injury. Jaden Reed dealt with injury. Aaron Jones was hurt most of that season. You lose David Bakhtiari. You're platooning Yash Nyman and Rasheed Walker. This is another one of those reasons. Like when I hear, Jordan Love, that offensive line, like some of the reasons to ding Jordan Love's production. The offensive line he played behind. Well, 2023, that offensive line was not anything to write home about. They were platooning the left tackles until the second half of the season when they were starting a 7th round pick at left tackle, who it turns out is a pretty solid player. Then they were platooning the right guard because the right guard was hurt, and we know the center wasn't any good. So like the whole premise, and then their right tackle, who it turns out is a good player, was a first-time starter. They've been able to put this all together before, to just figure it out. I know not everyone plays golf, but they've been able to ham and egg it, which in golf means, if you and your partner are able to ham and egg it, it's okay. One guy has a good hole while the other one has a bad hole. And if you're playing best ball, I've just lost half of you. I just know it. I'm trying to help. I swear. Can they beat the Lions down a bunch of guys? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know how much the coaching change is going to affect this Lions team. I think a lot. And so, do I trust Jeff Hafley? Yes. Yes, implicitly. Do I trust Matt LaFleur? Yes. Especially to figure it out. Like, think back Early Matt LaFleur era, 2019. No Devontae Adams. They just like figured it out. And then went on a heater. So like that kind of stuff. We've seen them do it. We've seen them do it. And I trust Matt LaFleur to handle it. I trust Jordan Love to figure it out, to handle it. And you still have Josh Jacobs. You still have Tucker Kraft. Now, Luke Musgrave got a little banged up. I think Luke Musgrave is one of the more underrated players heading into this season because they've been playing a lot of 12 personnel in the preseason and in practice. They've been starting team drill regularly with 12, with 2 tight ends on the field. And Luke Musgrave, like Tucker Kraft didn't get a target in the preseason. It was Luke Musgrave running a seam ball against cover 2. I think they still think pretty highly of Luke Musgrave. He can do things vertically. I'll play yesterday. Corner out from Malik Willis to Luke Musgrave. That's not really a Tucker Kraft route. That's not really a Tucker Kraft thing. His ability to win vertically. That's why I've compared Luke Musgrave in role, not in quality, but in role to Mark Andrews early in his career when he was running those deep over routes and corner routes and he was winning vertically. Not, a speedster prime Jimmy Graham kind of stuff or, Aaron Hernandez, the football player. Although Luke Musgrave does have that sort of speed. They have the pieces. They are built to withstand this. If they lose Lucas Van Ness, they have Kingsley Enagbare. They have Barron Sorrell, who's really coming on here. They have the ace up their sleeve, which is Edgerrin Cooper. Just blitz that guy more. Just send him more. Don't just simulate the pressure, send the pressure. They have these cards to play. And so, if they're banged up, I don't think all of these players will miss time, but there's a good chance they're going to go into week 1 and not have all their guys. That's just football. Like most teams are going to go into week 1 going, hey, I really wish this guy were more healthy. I really wish this guy were here. I really wish this. That's just the game. It's about the teams that can adapt. And I think the Packers are one of the most adaptive teams in the NFL. They have proven that in the Matt LaFleur era. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be lingering effects if someone like Jordan Love comes back by week 1. And that's the expectation. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first order.
The Browns have a need for speed.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
Listen, on the surface, getting a speeding ticket is not that big of a deal. The same thing that I said back when Shedeur Sanders was cited for 2 speeding tickets in the course of like 2 weeks applies here with Myles Garrett, who was cited for a ticket in the same stretch of road, by the way, where Shedeur Sanders was cited for one of his 2 speeding tickets, leaving the team facility Saturday morning. They got back in the wee hours of the morning, driving home, gets caught speeding. And here's the thing, it's not a surprise that either player was ticketed there because there's a very notable and known. It's not something like it's a pretty known thing at this point that there's a increased police presence there, always looking to get people speeding. It's one of those things where everybody kind of knows it. So Myles at this point, being an 8-year veteran, he should certainly know that. Shedeur's a little, he's new here. He might not have known to at least be aware of that. Myles should know better. And Myles should really know better on a number of fronts because, and that's maybe the biggest issue here is Myles is a little bit different when we talk about how upset people should be by this and how big of a deal it really is. I am going to maintain, like, getting a speeding ticket doesn't mean you're a bad person. Getting a speeding ticket doesn't have to be some indictment on your character where it's like, well, you're just, you're a terrible person. Because, like, I'm not sitting here saying that at all. People get speeding tickets. I've gotten them. I reiterate what I said all back earlier in the summer when we had this conversation before. But the reason it's a little bit different with Myles is because there's a repetitive pattern here. He has been cited by I believe by what I discovered, 8 different times for speeding throughout his NFL career. I think the majority of those are here in Northeast Ohio. And so it's something that he continues to have be an issue. And the bigger thing too is, like, everybody remembers that the crash he was involved in with his Porsche back in 2022 during the season. It was like 2 weeks into the season. And he gets in this massive car accident, speeding, hits a fire hydrant, car gets absolutely destroyed, rolls over a few times, and him and a female passenger that were with him walked away unscathed. Largely, they'd have to go to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries, but it could have been a lot worse. He missed a week he missed a game after that, and then was back the following week. And he even talked about at the time, like, that being a learning experience for him. Something that sort of, and he was younger in his career at that point. Like, it was 3 years ago. He was only 5 years. Like, people can sort of at least understand where it's like, hey, listen, this is a guy who's young, and young people sometimes do dumb things. Like I certainly did back in my day. But you felt like that was a turning point for Myles to, be careful with the way he drives and just in general. And then the pattern has kind of continued here where, not to say he didn't learn his lesson, but understanding, like, how dangerous this can be if you're not careful. He learned that more than anybody ever has by coming away unscathed, and he was fortunate for that. And so it felt like that was kind of the lesson learned moment, and it doesn't seem like it's necessarily stuck with that, where he continues to have this be an issue where he's getting popped for speeding. Now, again, I speed all the time. Like, I'm not saying, I've gotten tickets and I haven't necessarily learned my lesson either, but it is something that Myles for Myles specifically, it's like something that everyone's hyper aware of because of that accident in 2022. And I also think too, the other element of this with Myles is considered a leader on this team. And I've talked about this before. I think Myles is a leader to a point. Like, when he speaks, his teammates listen. When he has a voice and a presence in that locker room that people respond to and respect. And so he does have that leadership quality about him to a degree. But he's also not like the rah-rah guy. He's not necessarily the guy who's going to, like, stand in the circle and get everybody fired up. Like, he is a leader to a point. But like, even Jimmy Haslam, owner of the team, challenged him this offseason after signing the massive contract that he did to, embrace and challenged him to be more of a leader with this team and really set the tone. And the easiest way that Myles can be, the leader on this team, if he doesn't want to be like rah-rah guy, which is, I don't think is really in his DNA, is to lead by example and do the right things on and off the field. And I think he largely does do that. I want to be clear here, but certainly, this speaks to somebody who hasn't necessarily learned that lesson and probably serves as like a disappointing sort of moment for the organization that did dole out a lot of money to him this offseason, because they were anticipating, hey, this guy's going to take on even more. Again, the owner flat out challenged him. The owner of the team flat out challenged him to be a bigger leader. Now, Myles said that he doesn't necessarily feel like he has to do anything more than what he's already done to this point. I think on the field, he's 100% right. I think off the field, you can make the case that he have an even higher standard to uphold in the community, because he is the face of this franchise without Nick Chubb here anymore, and without a franchise quarterback to really lean on just yet. Maybe that becomes Shador. I think there's some fairness there that he's going to be held to a higher standard, and that's fine. But yes, like it is a little bit more concerning with Myles, because it's been now going on 9 years in this league where this is still sort of a problem for him. And he had the accident that was a very serious thing that, still is fresh in everybody's minds as an incident that should have maybe been a learning experience for him. And he's still out here making similar mistakes. Granted, he didn't crash, and that's the good news. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. I'm spending one segment on this and I'm moving on. But with great power, or in this case, with a great paycheck, comes great responsibility. And Myles knows that. He has talked about like understanding who he is, where he is, even if he doesn't feel like he has to do anything more, or he doesn't have to not be himself in terms of like the leadership role or quality that he has on this team. I can understand where he's coming from with that to a degree. Even if he doesn't feel that way, he knows that there's a lot of responsibility that comes with this. And every step of the way, whether it was Jimmy Haslam challenging him, whether it was Jim Schwartz saying, at the start of training camp that he expects Myles to have his best season yet because he got this massive payday. Like, you get paid like that, you got to perform. And I think Myles will perform. That's the one thing you can always count on Myles for. But some of that performance also is, being a leader on a team, especially when you are in the position that Myles Garrett is in, and knowing how good he is, and knowing that he's the face of the franchise at this point. It's, you're expecting a little bit more from him. And so I think this is kind of a disappointing moment overall for him, even though it's not the end of the world. I don't think we have to sit here and rip on Myles. I don't think we have to sit here and say, he's a moron or he's an idiot. Like, I'm not calling him names. I'm not doing any ad hominem attacks here. Like, none of that. Like, people make mistakes, people speed. It's fine. But I just think like the repetitiveness of the pattern that we're seeing here, where this has happened time and time again, and especially with the situation he had in 2022, where it felt like, okay, he's probably learned his lesson, to still see this being an issue, I do think is a little more concerning and more so disappointing than it even was with Shedeur Sanders, who obviously is a young kid who, makes mistakes, and everybody does make mistakes, whether you're a kid or not. But I'm just saying, like, it's a little more, it's a little harder to look the other way with Myles, because he should know better at this point. That's the main thing I'm trying to say.